Good evening. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. Anyways, the Toronto Raptors. They win 121 to 108. Felt kind of closer than that near the end, which led us to a very funny scene that will definitely, or not say definitely, but most likely become a Raptor Moments episode with DeMar yelling at Darko. And it was his second tech, and I felt like his first tech he was going to get thrown out. And I think the broadcast thought he was getting thrown out because he got teed up, I think, in the second quarter, which actually caused the Bulls to play a lot better after that point. But DeMar got teed up in the second quarter, and he was just like going off. Like he got teed up and then still kept going. And I thought when they called the technical on Drummond, or Draymond as Matt was calling him tonight, I thought, yeah, DeMar might get ejected at that point. And then at the end of the game, I was also surprised because I think it was Scottie who told Pascal to shoot, which I guess in the in-season tournament, point differential matters, but these teams are eliminated, but the court is still there. Maybe that's going to be something that the NBA has to kind of look at in the future of like, how do we spin this maybe a little bit different, but I was kind of surprised because, yeah, you know, the Raptors made a whole thing about like the unwritten code or whatever. But yeah, DeMar was like raging. You saw Zach LaVine also talk to Darko as well, but he was more. Zach LaVine had that kind of like shit-eating grin, just like, you know, probably calling him like a dick or just something, you know, pretty nonchalant or joking. But DeMar was like fucking pissed. And we didn't get the close-up, unfortunately, of DeMar and Darko. I had to take a picture of my TV, hence the shitty thumbnail, and 2 minutes late on the broadcast, but I had to. But, you know, before that was going to be about Scottie. You know, OG was their top scorer, but I really thought that, like, in the fourth quarter, it looked like the Bulls were going to. It seems like the Bulls have some weird, like, mystique curse over the Raptors, where the Raptors just will eventually somehow give them the game away, and it felt like that way about halfway through the fourth quarter. I think the Bulls were on like a 10-2 run, and the Raptors offense was just like gridlock. It was either like gridlock or like a really quick three, and they were up in the game. And it was like Precious, who had like a mixed game, just like rushing the ball up the court as fast as possible, up by like 15, and then just like throwing a really hectic pass, and Boucher missing a three. It's just like, okay, there's like 20 seconds in the shot clock and you're up by 15. And then Dennis just like being addicted to taking threes. It felt like in this game, I think he was like 1 for 10 or something. And it was just like really ugly. And it just had this, the game just had this feel that like Zach LaVine, who was, I mean, their whole offense tonight pretty much was just give the ball to Zach LaVine, and he can score from basically anywhere on the court. Like maybe not like Steph Curry range, but other than that, above the break, baseline, mid range, anywhere on the 3-point line, corner, elbows, above the break, guarded in mid range, like heavily guarded. At the bucket, like he can score from anywhere and everywhere. And you know, the Bulls bench wasn't giving them like anything really. It was look at the box score after, but the Bulls bench was, I mean, the Bulls are, I mean, we could talk about the Bulls after a little bit, but like, yeah, if the Raptors are a mess, the Bulls are just like a complete, you know, clusterfuck, which is annoying that they have this weird psychological hold over the Raptors, because it just seems like a random team. I just realized Chicago in the background. I didn't even mean for that to happen. Here in New York again. But it just seems like a random team to be like a servant to, and I think the whole DeMar thing plays a part in that, and obviously that's still a very emotional thing, and that probably factored into him like kind of having a panic attack at the end of the game. You know, he's got the Joker tattoo. Like he saw the Joker, like the Dark Knight, which is Josh Lewenberg's favorite movie also. He saw The Dark Knight and said, like, I want this on my body for the rest of my life. Like the Joker from The Dark Knight. Like the movie. Like from the movie. Like forever from the movie. And I mean, I think if that's like in your character, you're going to hold some kind of, there's going to be revenge in your veins. And I think him at the end, it was kind of a culmination of realizing that there just wasn't going to be revenge. And, he played a good game. Zach LaVine played a good game, but the rest of the team, I mean, I was laughing at Patrick Williams at the end, just unconsciously knocking down threes. I think those were his only baskets. Maybe he had one or two other ones, but like where was that all game? Where was, if you're a Bulls fan, it was like DeMar got a tech, Drummond or Draymond, as Matt says, got a tech, and then they just start playing really well. But other than that, they were like just listless. I mean, I think the team kind of knows, knows the fate, but of the core moving forward. You got Billy Donovan, who's a big Grateful Dead fan. I don't know if people know that or need to know about that. You got the ref with the just incredible Southern accent on the mic. His name's like Matthew, I think. He's either from like Mississippi or Alabama. But yeah, he just had a great Southern accent, really twangy. So just, going through the game. So the start of the game, I do watch the pregame. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know why I watch the pregame shows, but I do watch the pregame shows. And then they kind of go over the same thing when the game starts. And I was looking at Grady's shooting, and he was missing a lot of shots in the warm-up. That's my like courtside reporter intel. He just kind of happened to be in the frame, so I wrote that down. Siakam, comes into the game. He had 5 assists before his first bucket, so didn't have a lot of points tonight, but I thought he was really facilitating early. Jakob had a nice comeback game. He came into this game with a 20% turnover rate. That's a fun fact I looked up on Basketball Reference the other day and was like, wow, that's rough. He's still bobbling a little bit, and I don't know how many turnovers he had this game, but he had played much better. He's shooting 85% at the rim, but once you get out to 3 feet, it goes down to 43. So I felt like he was more trying to actually get to the rim, where he shoots a much better percentage. And yeah, I thought he was effective in this one. And then Gary, another side plot is Gold Gary. I think the last time he wore the gold, it was a good game for him. He likes the gold jerseys. I think he came into the game, hit a 3, got a steal and a fast break, and took it into Caruso, who's first team all defense, and didn't do his hip turning thing, which is super annoying. He actually sought contact instead of just kind of like, I don't know, but he normally just does some he does some crazy stuff in transition, and it was like the most normal thing you'll see in transition, which is like in a good way, just like stop, seek contact a little bit, get into the guy, and then finish strong straight up. And I think it was an and one, or even if it wasn't, it was a really impactful kind of swing play, and the Raptors were up pretty big in the first quarter. And it seemed like at the beginning of the game, the only offense that the Bulls could really get were really difficult Zach LaVine shots, and they weren't passing it. I think the Raptors had 14 assists in the first quarter, first half, and the Bulls had 6 or 7, and it's just so much ISO ball. It's a lot of gridlock. They don't have a playmaker really. Kobe White's a point guard, kind of like Fred VanVleet's a point guard. It's okay, if you want to call it that. So there's just not a natural. I mean, they miss Lonzo Ball a lot, obviously, but there's no natural, and they haven't really replaced Lonzo since he went down. So, I mean, Colby White just kind of slides in there. I don't know what, if anybody can tell me what happened to Ayo Dosunmu. He was was it last year, the year before? He felt like what Delano Banton was supposed to be, and was getting serious minutes. And now tonight, when he was shooting the 3, he had 85 feet of room taking that thing. Nobody's even going near him on the perimeter. It's go take that shot, buddy. And I think he missed he definitely missed 2 threes. I want to say even more, maybe even 3 or 4, and they were just like wide open. So I don't know what happened to his like development, or if that was just like a hot streak that he was in. But man, these Bulls young players. There's another guy they drafted, like Cauley something. He's barely getting minutes, and then Patrick Williams, who's weird similarities with Scottie in some ways, but completely opposite in other ways. Like both the 4 pick, both wear number 4, both from Florida State. Just some weird kind of like intricacy. The game of basketball, I think the Bulls have drafted really poorly for a long time now. I mean, none of their players that are good they drafted. Like DeMar they didn't draft, Zach LaVine they didn't draft, Vucevic they didn't draft, Caruso they didn't draft. And it's just they have the Chicago Bulls like have not drafted well in the last I don't know how long time. Like I'm thinking even I don't want to go down that road, but we got Matt calling drum on Draymond, which was pretty funny. Grady checks into the game and travels immediately. Whoa, was that really loud for some reason on my volume? Is the volume going nuts or something? Is that better? Maybe I'll check the chat. What are people saying? What are people saying in the chat? We did have audio issues before going on live, so what did you guys think? What did you guys think of the game? Your mic went super loud and distorted. You're good now. Better. Yeah, this mic like wasn't working when I started it, and now it's being weird. Robert Reiger says someone saved DeMar. He doesn't deserve the Bulls. I mean, yeah, he was in a tough, like he's had a pretty tough, journey, even before he came in the NBA, obviously, but then traded from the Raptors to the Spurs, where people forgot he existed. I think ESPN put out their top 100 players and he was like 85th or something. And yeah, they were doing like nothing. And then, they that was just a weird, who was even on, it was like, they had decent talent in retrospect. They had like DeJounte Murray, Patty Mills, I think, Derek White. But yeah, and then he goes to this Bulls team who were like randomly number 1 for like half a season or something. And it's just been a gong show ever since. I mean, I don't think they're going to pivot. Honestly, that's like my hot take. I think Jerry Reinsdorf. It's not the smoothest name. Jerry Reinsdorf. A lot of R's in that name. Not like he also manages and owns the Chicago White Sox, and both organizations are just complete gong shows. Like always doing the opposite of like what a sane human being would do. And you could see it in The Last Dance, the Netflix documentary about the Bulls. Like he's talking about like Scottie Pippen's contract and just like saying just like I thought was like wild shit. That was like an under talked about aspect. Everybody was jumping on the GM that everybody didn't like, that MJ didn't like, Jerry Krause. But I thought Jerry Reinsdorf was way more like manipulative and gaslighting, being like, yeah, I told Scottie Pippen not to sign that contract, but the one I drew up for him, and it's like, I don't know. He just seems like he's on another planet. It was cool that Masai and DeMar had a little moment there when DeMar got ejected. Maybe that brought him down to earth for a second, but yeah, it's been rough. It feels like he should be on the Clippers. Like they have all the LA people there. They got Harden from LA, Russ from LA, Paul George from LA, Kawhi from LA. You just need to add DeMar to that kind of guys in their mid-30s from or in their 30s from LA. He just feels like he should be on that team, and I think with him maybe they could be like a 5th seed or something. So that could be. I don't know what the trade is though. Like what? Yeah, I just don't see Chicago. I don't see Chicago doing the same thing. I just think they're going to keep like just redoing the Vucevic trade a million times. That's just what they do. I don't, a lot of people talk about the Bulls as like blowing things up and trading pieces. I don't know. He's like a special type of, I don't even know what the word is, just incompetent, kind of crazy. So Precious had such a weird game. Like, he made a lot of really nice passes, and he had a couple really nice finishes, and his energy was great, but he tried to do too much like 3 or 4 times, and then on defense, he has this problem where like guys that are much smaller than him are just coming in and getting rebounds. But yeah, he just like that one play where he just like the Raptors are up like 14 or 15. He's just like in the fourth quarter fourth quarter, just like bombing up the court and trying to get like quick shots and stuff. And it's just sometimes that game awareness is just like not there. And Darko had one timeout left with like 5 minutes left in the game. So there were a lot of points where it looked like the Raptors were going to kind of just give in or something to this curse. And I feel like he kept having to take, especially in the fourth quarter, they're like kept having to take timeouts. But I thought that Precious was kind of a culprit in that closer to the end of the game. So, but like a weird game from him because he also had some crazy passes, which you don't normally see that much out of him. So I thought that was really good. But yeah, just like a very kind of extreme game from him. Same as Chris kind of too. Like both of them together late, like in a fourth quarter when time and score is important. I know you're up like 16 or whatever, but it's the NBA, things can happen. And when, you have kind of I think Grady was even on at that point too. So it's like it was a bit sketchy. Like I thought, Darko was great with his timeouts, but he also in the fourth quarter, like he put that lineup out again, which was Scottie plus the bench, which hadn't really worked in the first half. He put that out again in the fourth quarter, and that's when the Bulls went on that run. And that's still something that like baffles me. I don't understand why that lineup doesn't do as well as you think it would. But for whatever reason, they talked about it in the first half, like Scottie and Pascal that crew works really well. But when it's just like one starter and the bench, it's really tough. And but yeah, then OG hits some huge threes at the end, which were huge, kind of. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, Precious, like there was one time too where you could hear Scottie yelling to Precious, keep it moving. And Precious was doing, had some great passes, but sometimes on the perimeter, he still he just takes that extra second or two to survey things, and often that kind of screws up the whole because tonight was more of a 0.5 offense game. Like there was tons of assists, tons of movement. And again, Precious maybe had some of the nicest passes, but then there was also a bunch of times on the perimeter where it's like it's just a second or two. Gary kind of does the same thing, but Gary actually had a couple, and it's significant. He had a couple really nice assists because coming into this game, again, I did a little bit of stats research for you folks. Gary had 13 assists on the season coming into this game. So if you total up his minutes, that's 1 assist per 24 minutes that he's playing. Otto is actually 1 for 105 minutes, which is wild, but I mean, let that thing fly when you play, I guess. But Gary had a couple really nice. He had a pick and roll with Precious, like from the all the way from the 3-point line, like a full, 23 feet of pick and rollishness. Like, it was, a thing in the game that you have to rewind and watch again and be like, wait, was that Dennis? No, it was okay. That was Gary and Precious doing a pick and roll, and it was great. Like it worked really well. And Gold Gary again. Just seems more confident in the gold jerseys. Seems like a jersey he would like. I think from his fashion. I know in practices he wears his jersey like the wrong way around, like with the number on the front. So I think jerseys are important to him, maybe. And if there's a way to just have him, like, no matter what the color the Raptors are wearing, just like Gary wear the gold jersey and everybody kind of knows, maybe that could work out. the Bulls got 3 techs in the second quarter. So Javon Carter got a tech. Gary was like yelling. I want to see the American broadcast, which I will get from a legal website. Totally legal, totally legit. I will get that because he was yelling at Dennis, but then there was I could lip read him saying Dennis, but then it was him and Javon were kind of yelling a bit at each other, and then Dennis and Colby have had a bit of a history. So I didn't know if it was kind of an emotional game. I felt like the Bulls, getting 3 techs. Boucher got a tech, and Malachi actually had like a bit of a dad moment. I know Boucher's like 28, 29, I think. Malachi is like, I guess they're not that different, but Malachi having like a dad moment just because Boucher got the tech, and he did that kind of like, when he does this, when he screams, it's like Pascal, like, but like times 3.5. And he did that thing, and he was like walking towards the ref like he was about to do something very bad, and Malachi just like grabbed him, like full body grabbed, and was like calming him down. So it was like, cool dad moment from Malachi there, kind of an important stretch of the game. But it was around that point where, like, halfway through the fourth, when the Bulls were kind of going on that run, Scottie's just kind of doing like everything on every, like, offense and defense, just doing everything, like communicating, screaming, getting blocks, getting deflections, getting rebounds, passing the ball, moving on offense. And I can't remember the exact lineup that was out there for that point, but it was just like dead. Like the whole thing was just fucking like dead. It just felt dead. It felt like the Bulls had all the momentum. And it felt, and he kind of single-handedly came in and just got everybody back into how they've been playing earlier in the game. Like in the first quarter, they were just like, it was, they just like killed the Bulls in the first quarter. And then they didn't have a horrible second quarter, but again, this team's like the worst, plus minus in the second quarter. That kind of came up again. But then it was that first half of the fourth quarter that was really tough. That was when it was just like, are they gonna, and also, I don't know if anybody else caught this this also could be potential episode worthy, I think, where it was 10 seconds left in the third quarter. I don't know who shot it, but someone on the Bulls shot it off, and it hit the top of the backboard. And like that, I think that should be like dead. Is that the term for it? Dead ball. And the play just kept going, and then someone got an offensive rebound, and then they got 2 free throws out of it. And I was kind of like, and then Darko went right up to the ref and was like having a conversation with him, and I was like, sure that's what it was about, because it was pretty obvious too. And so they got 2 free throws out of it, and I kind of had that in my head of like, damn, if this is one of those like overtime, and of course it would be against the Bulls. And also Siakam got another really bad call with Caruso. Didn't they learn from the L2M report last time? So that was kind of funny. We got Evan Scott, who I think has some history with the Raptors. I know he's one of the lower ranked referees, like based on, I think they're ranked on like how many games they play. Although Scott Foster gets, so I don't know how legit that is. What are folks saying? Why did DeMar yell at Darko? It was because of the shot at the end. Like, they just kind of looked like they didn't really know what they were doing. I'm pretty sure it was Scottie that yelled at Pascal to like shoot it. And then Pascal just like shot it, and then I think there was an offensive rebound, and they got free throws out of it or something. But ironically, it's the thing, or the idea that the Raptors were mad at the Celtics for, which is just kind of this unwritten rule that if you're up by, I don't know, 10 at that, probably even at that, it's a stretch, but like if the other team's kind of given up and they're not fouling you, and you can just kind of sense it, unless it's going to be a turnover situation, which I don't think it was going to be, you just dribble it out, or you just kind of dribble it out. You see that happen in games all the time. That's why they dribble it out at the end. So DeMar, I guess, saw that as quote unquote breaking the code, and he was already emotional game for him. He was already kind of in a pissy mood. Again, he's got the Joker tattoo, so yeah, that's what that was. It was entertaining. It was a nice way to like end the game. You know, it's kind of a fun thing. Davy Jones, DeMar wasn't. I swear DeMar was yelling at the assistant, not Darko. I saw him yelling at Darko, and then right after that, Zach LaVine was talking to Darko and talking in a way that was like, not, you know, like he was smiling, but it was that sarcastic. What do you call it? Sarcastic smile, and I don't know why he'd be yelling at the assistant. Seems like more of a. George Ekman says LaVine is a Raptor. Yeah, I talked about the Zach LaVine thing a couple episodes ago. Again, I don't see the Bulls making the same move. But you see tonight, like, there's kind of that argument of like Zach LaVine doesn't fit with the Raptors. But I mean, if you can score like that, you and the Raptors offense is what it is. You know, didn't plug myself in. There we go. Yeah, I mean, what would the score have been tonight if Zach LaVine wasn't playing? He had like 36 points or something. They just rely on his isolation so much. Like, there doesn't even really seem to be like a system, you know. It would be interesting to see him, because he's been on the Bulls forever. He was on the Timberwolves, and he's been on the Bulls for like how long? Like, he's never been a player that has been like in a, you know, outside of that Lonzo Ball, you know, a few months or whatever. Like, he hasn't been in an actual like healthy, strong system. It's just been so much of his kind of isolation play. So that could either like hurt him in a system where he's not used to it, or maybe he just gets way more open shots and isn't relied upon as much. But if he was on the Raptors, it probably would be kind of a similar thing. They don't have a great offensive system. So he would probably, I don't know, but I don't really see the Bulls doing that. It would just make too much sense. DeMar was frustrated all game. Scottie emoting on DeMar was the highlight of the game. JBR it's still DeMar's house. There's a reason Masai hugged him. Glad we beat his ass, but don't troll him. I don't know what that means. Roy, Schroder had 19 shot attempts. Wish he could have had some over to Scottie. He took, I think especially down the stretch, like when they weren't falling. I know, you know, shooters and stuff have their, you know, you shoot until you miss, or you miss until you shoot, or whatever. But, yeah, there were a few possessions where it just didn't seem like the best shot either. It just kind of seemed like we're going to just take this three for whatever, not super open, still maybe 14, 15 seconds left on the shot clock. Yeah, it was kind of it's a bit of a rough game. A bit of a rough game for Schroder in front of his old coach. Gurpitar Man says he threw his jersey after 2. I didn't see that. Oh, JBR1 actually isn't mad at me, so that's cool. He says we got eliminated by the Magic boys. Enjoyed tonight before we're back to it. Okay, so you're not mad at me. That's nice. Boucher's 30. Jive Pimp. Boucher's 30. I thought he was at least 28. I didn't know he was 30. Okay. I just love that thing he did with Will and Mike Roach, which I did a video about, where he's just like, I don't care what you say about me, but you better not say anything bad. But I don't care. But don't say anything bad. But just remember that I don't care. Just reminds me of that drill tweet, where he's like, don't print that I'm mad in the newspaper again. Please don't print that I was mad. Solstice 99 point differential. DeMar. All Bulls fans want to rebuild. All White Sox fans want to rebuild. All Bulls fans have wanted to rebuild. Again, I said this in the last game with Chicago, but like after this is over, if you want a good laugh about the guy who owns the Bulls, search up Chicago White Sox fan rant. It's on an ESPN radio station, and it's a caller, and usually callers stink, but like they just let this guy cook for like 7.5 minutes, and he just gives the fucking like what's the term? I can't, not laundry list. What do you call it? I'm too baked to recall this memory or word or phrase, but something, I don't know. But he just takes them to task, and it's Jerry Reinsdorf, the same guy that owns the Bulls. So you can kind of pick up what the philosophy is from ownership, kind of from that interview. So yeah, I know a lot of people, and it's sad. Like I grew up watching basketball in the 90s. There's a picture of me in Hawaii with a Bulls t-shirt on and a Bulls basketball. So like double, I'd wear the Bulls shirt with the Bulls basketball. So like it is sad. It's like the Knicks. I was a Knicks fan growing up too. And it's sad to see these organizations just completely wither away to nothing. Like if you're young, it might be crazy, but like back in the day, the Knicks and the Bulls were like a thing. Like they were cool. Like you'd watch them on Saturday morning and go, whoa, these teams are really cool. And like, they've just fallen, and both relatively around the same time. Kind of weird with that, like timeline wise, if you think about like Bulls and Knicks, where the Knicks just totally collapsed in like 2002. And then with the Bulls, it was, well, I mean, they didn't make the finals after 98, but like within that kind of end of the 90s, they were so dominant in the 90s, and then like end of the 90s, start of the 2000s, they both just like, started sucking, and then had just one blip. Like the Bulls was in 2011, and the Knicks I think was 2013, where they just had like this one little blip of like, oh, that was kind of cool, and then again both of them just back, both of them just drafting like dog shit, incompetent manager after incompetent manager, lineups that don't make sense, too many bigs, too many like just. They've kind of been these similar things, and now I'd say the Knicks are obviously much further ahead now, but for a while there, it was just, yeah, I mean, the Bulls are, if you're looking at, jobs around the league, that would be one of the harder fixes, I think. It's just because you have to think about it. When you take that job, you have to work for Jerry Reinsdorf, and he's done this with 2 organizations. So this is not a fluke. This is like, there's more evidence than against like James Dolan, who only has one team and a band. She could try to get the band on this show. That'd be JD in the straight shot or straight shooter or something. I love how he booked, like they play Madison Square Garden. They would like open for like, I think like the Eagles or something, like just wild shit. That guy's just living the dream. It's like Wyatt Coke. Akama, these post-game huddles tell me more about the game than the highlights. Post-game huddles. What are the post-game huddles? Hermes Curry Bro. OG got the chain. I could see that. He played... Like even though Zach, I think he played good defense against Zach LaVine. It's just like so many of Zach LaVine's shots are just like you can't really guard that. And they were actually going at each other like a little bit. They were chirping a little bit. I wrote it down. I think it was in like the second or third quarter. And then OG kind of took like an uncharacteristic, like he was in the corner and like Zach was guarding him, and he kind of like did a little bit of his like Kobe Anunoby mid-range thing, which kind of seemed like out of character for this game. But I think it was him and LaVine were kind of battling, I think. And yeah, overall he played good defense on Zach, and he shot the ball really well. It was how many games has he been back since the hand injury? Because the last few games the shot wasn't falling. But what did he do? Let's look at the box score for a sec here. What did OG shoot tonight? 10 for 14, 5 for 7 from 3. Yeah, so his threes were looking like, especially the last, I think 2 or 3 games, just like not as sexy, not as smooth. And tonight he goes 5 for 7 from 3, 26 points. Was he on the floor during, because his plus minus is kind of a bit whack. Like him and Dennis are +8, +9, and the rest of the starters are +18, +15, +13. Was he out there kind of during that dead stretch? Because the thing with OG, like even when his shot is going, because I remember Scottie got him at least 1 3, maybe 2 at the end of the game, and kind of during that dead stretch in the fourth quarter, I think OG was on the floor and just like not getting the ball in the right situations. I wonder how many of OG's points were assisted by Scottie, because it felt like he was finding him a lot, especially late. But yeah, the bench. I don't know. I mean, Gary played really well. Precious, again, it was just like a weird. I don't even know how to assess this game from Precious. Like, he didn't take any threes. He went 3 for 4. 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks. But then there was also, 2 turnovers, which seems like there was feels like there was more than that. And just a few plays that were like kind of head scratching. But I mean, all in all, it is still an improvement. Malachi, I didn't really notice too much tonight. He only played 14 minutes in this game. Only took 2 shots, 2 points, only 1 assist. I don't know. I can't like, I don't think I have any Malachi notes. I just didn't really, notice him. I don't think he played badly. I just don't really, I don't know. What did Malachi do tonight? Does anybody remember I don't remember a Malachi play from tonight. Boucher, kind of the same, like hard to assess. I think again, like when him and Precious are both on in the fourth quarter, and some of the decision making is kind of like, I don't know, but he only played 10 minutes, but I thought his energy was really good, which is always kind of the case. But again, that decision making sometimes, like he was on the floor during that stretch where it was kind of dead, and like what was his plus minus? -1. So yeah, in 10 minutes. And yeah, like I felt like that kind of happened. Not that it's like his fault, but it happened when he was out there. And I think he kind of contributes to, because Boucher has a lower assist rate than like Gary. Meaning to double check that, but it's like in the ballpark. And it's kind of one of those things where he's not, processing things really quickly and making plays and stuff. So he can, I think in times where it gets sloggy, him and Precious can kind of contribute. Although again, tonight, although Precious had a couple of weird plays, like he had, some really nice dimes as well. So, and then, Grady, I think he's 15 for 15 from the free throw line. Free throws are looking beautiful. But again, he kind of struggles to. I feel like he's not impacting the games as much as he was earlier in the season too. Like he's just not getting as many tips and deflections and offensive rebounds. That part I don't really know what's with that. But again, he's kind of teetering on the edge of not being in the rotation. Like he got 9 minutes tonight and didn't play last game, so like he got the least amount of minutes of anybody on the bench. Didn't play in the game before. It's still really early in the season. Like they're only 15 games in, and he's kind of already slipping. I don't know, but at the same time, I don't know what the expectations were. I definitely don't think he's exceeded expectations, but I don't know what that looks like in the future. Like if they do send him down to the G League, but at the same time, the Raptors don't have a ton of bench players either, so I think that has to factor in. I mean, the Raptors, with where they're at, winning games is the most important thing. Nameless says, I'd like to pry Caruso off the Bulls. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the whole thing of him being more valuable than Zach LaVine is. I've heard that a lot. I don't really agree with that. Like, could you imagine Zach LaVine on like the Sixers or something instead of DeAnthony Melton? But Caruso, like, the cool thing about Caruso is you could put him pretty much on any team and he would slot in really nicely and be effective. He's not at all like, he doesn't seem to have like ego really. Like he doesn't seem to need anything. He just goes out there, you know, if you played basketball, you know, at the community level, you play with people like that. They just come in and they're just bombing up and down the court, getting offensive rebounds, hitting people, making plays for others, you know, taking threes when it's open and hitting them at a good clip, and just playing psychotic defense. And like, you like to play with those people. I think everybody would like to play with Alex Caruso. Maybe not the rest of the bench. Drummond, I'm not sure how much fun it is to play with Drummond or Javon Carter, or is Torrey Craig starting for them? Yeah, Torrey Craig is starting for them over Patrick Williams. Just imagine like Torrey Craig starting over Scottie. I mean, I shouldn't compare them, but they have so much in common. There's so much weird shit in common that you kind of have to, just as a joke. Flynn's 2 points came from Tex. Yeah, he took the Tech free throws, which I thought was interesting because he's only, they said it on the broadcast, but I feel like it was in the 60s or 70s on the season, which, I mean, the Raptors are like 71, 72, but yeah, he had his best game kind of ever, and then I don't remember anything really from this game. But I don't think he played, like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe Malachi did this, or I can't believe Malachi did that. It's just, I thought Vucevic had a really, really just like throwing the ball out of bounds. And so it's not like one of those things. Caruso off the Raptors bench would help a lot. What if you would, no, there's no way you could start him. Yeah, that would be crazy off the bench. But I don't know. I don't see, I think the Raptors like need draft picks. I think that's like one of the things that the front office is like actually good at. Not so much the ones in the 40s, but kind of lower than that. Andrew says 20% of the way into the season and the team is 500. I think they'll finish in this range. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I can see the case for either doing a lot better. Like, there's a lot of ways you could look at the season so far. Like, their losses have come against like the top teams, and a couple of those have been competitive losses. You can look at like new coach, new system. Pascal's starting to figure out how to kind of, or I think they're both, the team and Pascal are kind of figuring things out more. OG seems to be taking a leap a little bit, you know, not like a Scottie type leap, but I would say that OG has taken a jump, you know, we'll call it a jump. And I don't think people have really talked about it that much because of Scottie, the magnitude of Scottie's leap, but OG, and you hope with these types of things that they continue kind of throughout the season to get better and better. So I think if that continues, if Scottie's leap, like there's ways you can frame it. I think there's ways that you could, you know, talk yourself into this team being like a 5 seed or I mean, the East is not amazing, but it's not the West by any means. So you could talk your way into that, but then you could also totally talk your way into they missed the play-in. You know, some of these games, like, you know, their comebacks against, you know, the Spurs and the Wizards, and some of the losses have just been just so like unserious. And so there's ways that you could talk yourself into them not making, and then there's ways that, like, I guess if I was betting money, yeah, I would probably bet somewhere around, you know, 500, which is probably somewhere around the play-in. But if you're the front office, I guess you have to talk yourself into the whole Miami Heat phenomenon of the 8th seed, or the New York Knicks, you know, 1999, speaking of the 90s Knicks, the 8th seed going all the way to the finals and losing. So yeah, some people in the chat giving me just absurd trades that I'm not even gonna read out loud because I don't even know how to talk about it. Z Shrug says, my worst fear is when Precious brings the ball up the floor like a point guard. It's tough because on one hand, I was thinking about this today, like he's one of the better dribblers on this team, which is unfortunate. it's not so much him dribbling the ball up. It's when he gets the ball like at around the, the break or the 3-point line. And then he's like, he keeps going. Like he just, like Scottie's really good at going end to end. It's when it's, for me, it's when Precious tries to go like end to end, and he does a lot of, like, he'll jump before he makes a decision, which is just like rule number one of, maybe not of basketball, but important rule. Like if you're going to jump, you got to know what you're doing. And there's a lot of times where he kind of has to jump to get himself out of trouble, and then he's spinning around looking for people, throwing messy passes if it's even on target. That part of it, yeah, that's brutal. Like he needs to get the ball up quickly, which is good, and then get it to a guard and like get into a position where he's useful to that guard or can, set up a pick and roll. His screens are like not great. He really needs to work on setting screens. I've done some video highlight stuff on that. He just sets these really soft screens, and he's not really sure like when to set them and how many times. Like re-screening is really weird for him. Like he'll set a really soft screen, and then he'll just kind of be like, okay, do I, like, it's this indecisive. And maybe if he had this dream of playing the wing, he wasn't, I don't know. But I guess even if you're the wing, you're going to be doing that as well. I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, it's when he gets in kind of the open floor, and if there's nobody there, you're going to have, it'll be on top of r/NBA, if there's nobody in transition, it's going to be a crazy athletic dunk. But if there's like one or two people back, it's like, ugh. But at the same time, sad as it is, he probably has one of the better handles on the team. And I think, like, speaking of handles, like, I think the next step for OG and Gary both are handle. Like, both of those players, if they had better handles, would be even more dangerous offensively. Like, even though Gary had that great finish in transition, the handle was still kind of like, you can see it in spots where he kind of is off balance or in weird positions. Like it's more, Jaylen Brown's a really good example of someone who, his is probably even worse, which is crazy, but it's like anytime there's a bit of off balance, it just kind of gets a little bit, Precious does that a lot. But OG and Gary as well. Like that's really the next step for them. I think the shot is down for them. Overall awareness, I think is like pretty good. Gary could, they both could maybe work on play. They both have like not a ton in common, but they have some things in common. Playmaking, not really a strength of either of theirs either. I don't know how much they can add to that. I think adding adding dribbling is a lot easier than adding playmaking. Playmaking is a little bit more cerebral, more like gushing over tape, and I don't know. There's debate on whether you can really even like teach that. Can Scottie teach Gary how to be a playmaker? Like, I don't know. But handle is kind of the thing that you can just hammer and nails, just rep after rep after rep after rep. So that's the next step for them, definitely. But that's a whole other topic. But yeah, Precious. What is Precious? Like fifth best dribbler on the team. But yeah, when he goes full court, it's an adventure. Kyle, did anyone see DeMar throw his jersey on the ground as he walked into the tunnel? I did not see that, but again, great for a video. Yeah, there's some material there for sure. Devin Smith, if you have Scottie or G on the floor with LaVine, I think we could hold him enough. Oh, you mean if LaVine is on the Raptors? Yeah. I don't really like talking about hypothetical trades. Andrew, thoughts on Will Lou's glow up? I don't know what that means. Glow up? I don't even know how to watch their show anymore. Like, is it on YouTube? Is it not on YouTube? Sometimes there's the full episode there. Sometimes there's clips. I listen to the podcast version. There's some parts of it I do skip. But I'm an avid listener to the pod. I would love to watch it. I just don't really know how. I know Sportsnet, they've got, Rogers, the parent company, they only have 4.9 billion in liquidity. So I understand not wanting to give away anything for free on YouTube, and you got to subscribe to Sportsnet Plus or Sportsnet 360 or whatever it is. But then I've noticed that they post the full show on YouTube. So sometimes, though, not all the time. Like, you can't depend on it, but sometimes it's there. I don't know. If I had a sweet studio like that, I'd be like, let's get this on YouTube. The algorithm will like it. Glow up means he's looking better than he used to. Again, I haven't seen him. We talk behind the scenes, but I haven't like physically seen him in a while. What are the improvements? Like, is it outfit based? Is it hair based? Like, I guess what are we 50 minutes into this game? I think that's pretty much it for my notes. Jakob Hurtle smokes Torrey Craig with a block. Malachi stops Boucher from like freaking out. Scottie erases LaVine. That was a really great play at the end. Dennis addicted to threes. Bulls going a 7-0 run at the end, or close to the end. Another bad Caruso Siakam foul call. OG and LaVine chirping a little bit. OG gets revenge. Gary yelling at Javon. Bulls 7-0 run off Raptors bench lineup. Bulls playing harder after DeMar Tech. Scottie tells Precious to keep him moving. Precious with a crazy nice pass. Grady travels the first time he touches the ball. Matt calling Drummond Draymond. And Gary's better in gold. Gold and Gary. So, Robert Reiger. Rogers is a small indie company. They can't be handing things out for free. I mean, I think they hire good people. So, I don't know. What do you guys think of I think the pregame and halftime shows, I just don't imagine Brad Fay waking up at 2 a.m. to jot an idea down for the show. Just kind of wish there was more basketball people involved sometimes. But I think they hire decently. They hired Will and Alex, so that's good. And then it gives, Will and Alex really good access to get Adam Silver on the show, or, a number of high profile guests. So, but at the same time, I think from the management side, I think you're losing people with, trying to get them to subscribe to the premium without just putting it on YouTube. I think you're looking at it short term. You're not looking at the long-term value of building this brand. Rogers and Bell, they're both built the same. They have 3 pillars of their business: internet, telephone, and media. The margins on internet and telephone are massive because, Canada has the highest bills or highest rates in the world. And these companies have a near monopoly on that. So they make a ton of profit on those 2 arms of their business. But the media arm, the TSNs and the Sportsnets, do considerably worse on margin. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I've read through the MD&As and management circulars, and it's catastrophically lower. That's why, that's not why, but you get the Bet Rivers during the free throws and stuff. They need to kind of pump all that in to keep the profit margins respectable. So, them going off YouTube is a way that management sees we can drive up subscriber rates to our premium platforms. I just think that's short-sighted, because at the end of the day, you have this opportunity to build this huge brand with Will and Alex, and they've done a lot of that themselves. They run the Twitter channel, they designed the graphics, they did the logo, they got the artwork done. They've really done the parts of it that make it successful. It's watch any of the Seinfeld inside looks that are on YouTube. Great series. Used to be in the DVDs when I was a kid. Used to watch them. all the management at NBC and the television stations, NBC here in New York, I'm here in New York. They hated the Chinese restaurant. They hated the limo. They hated like the like they hated all the classic episodes that made the show what it is. And they admit to that and be like, oh no, we wanted Jerry and Elaine to be a couple. We thought that would be more comedically enhanced or more jokes could be. And it's just like, you guys are idiots. And I think in the long run, you take Will and Alex like off YouTube, you fracture that brand connection. And these are the people that are going to be buying internet and phone from you for the next however many years, because you're not tapping into the next generation with like Brad Fay and I don't know. It's like they're not, I don't think they're using their and this is not a hot take. Like a lot of people have said this, they do mass firings like every few years. These big telecom companies do mass firings, and it's the talent that gets fired. It's the people on the radio. It's the people doing the podcasting. It's not anything in the telecoms or the internet or wireless, because that's the stuff that gets the margin. And, despite this like stinginess, like Roger's stock is not doing that amazing, especially relative to like macro bull run. You guys want to start talking stocks? I used to make stock market media. Give me a balance sheet, vegan grass. Alvin's a basketball person. You want more of that? I mean, yeah. I mean, why does it? Not every basketball person gets every 19th word wrong. There's tons of basketball people. Achiuwa better this game, you think? Says G-Man. Yeah, but the bar's pretty low. It's just a tough, like, even though he's making these better plays, like, it's just a tough player right now to have in high leverage situations. And like, you saw him play when they were up like 16, but those minutes were not like one. So Brad Fay catching straight. I'm just using Brad Fay as like a moniker. I don't have to like go through. Just he's like the first one that came to mind because he's like on the pregame, on the halftime. Just like that archetype in general, where it's kind of this idea of like the host. You really noticed it during like the World Cup, like with soccer, where you just have this host who's like a host. Like they don't know the intricacies of basketball or soccer at that time. And they're just like, they bring you into commercial and they take you out of commercial. It's the Mike Greenbergs. It's just like that role I just don't understand. So yeah, Brad Fay as like a moniker of that. Same as the Courtside Reporter. I don't understand I don't understand how the Courtside Reporter works. I don't understand getting these scoops before the thing that everybody's either already heard before or not that unique, instead of telling us what's happening at the stadium that you're at. You're one of the few people who are actually privileged enough to be at the stadium. Why don't you give us a thought on what you see happening in front of your eyes? I would assume you're into sports and you've been to a sporting event before. Can you tell us what you see here? You're at the fucking game sitting courtside, or you're courtside. You did an interview with somebody. That's great. That's podcast material. And again, it's not like I'm not blaming the Savannah Hamiltons or the Josh Lewenbergs or whatever, but like I'm blaming like the upper management and the middle management for setting these people are going to set up this way. Like you're the host guy, like you bring them in. That's why it's refreshing when you get like a Kia Nurse or a Leo Routens, people who actually can like break something down. Like I just think this is old era stuff, having these hosts that just are, you could plug them into anywhere and you could put them in any situation. And it's like, these people have survived the mass firings, just the fucking host, because they're like, hey, I'm the host. Like why couldn't Kia Nurse bring us in and out of commercial? You know what I mean? It's kind of like I think like they realized this with Mark Jackson. It's like, we don't need this anymore. We don't need we don't need these like intros and outros. It's like, I don't know, those vacuum cleaners that you have to, like, it'd be like opening a vacuum cleaner shop 2023. Like, I'm going to open up a in-person retail vacuum cleaner emporium in downtown Toronto. That feels like what we're doing with the hosts. Is this getting through? lot of people way too excited to make Josh Giddey jokes, which has me suspect of what your internet search history is, sir. Please hand over. This is the CIA. Please hand over your internet search. You made a Josh. I can't even say his name. Unprovoked. So I'm gonna need to check that out. Savannah Hamilton played for Ryerson. I think that's a swear word, by the way. She's a legend, bro. Is bro like more of a Toronto thing? I don't know. I just don't ever say like bro. I don't think any of you guys are my bros. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't use that word. So you like her on the broadcast. You like the scoops and reading off a sheet. You enjoy that. Like, you get excited for that. Okay. I have nothing against an individual courtside reporter, but I don't enjoy the prepackaged. I just don't enjoy the position as a whole, how it functions, and the system that they're put in, told by middle management, told by producers, told by showrunners that, hey, this is what you're doing. This is how the structure of it works. Like, you're not here to give us insights. And I think it degrades the people like Savannah Hamilton, who, yes, I know she plays basketball, or she played basketball for a swear word college, I think now. I don't know. I'm not a Toronto person, but I think it's like a swear word now for some reason. When has she gone into like X's and O's about basketball or about what's happening in the game? This is what I'm saying. It's not the individual's problem. It's not the individual, the Josh Lewenbergs or the Savannah Hamiltons or whatever. It's that like certain people, like Kia Nurse is allowed to break down basketball, to break down plays. I mean, they put music beds in it, which is fucking annoying. It's like the most important thing, in my opinion, that people could kind of learn about and whatever. And it's like Adam Silver even came out and was like, we want people talking about basketball more, about the game. Not like, hey, Matt, I talked to this guy. He went to high school with this other guy he's playing against. And guess what? They're friends off the court. But once that whistle blows, Matt, not friends anymore. Back to you guys. So you like that. You think that's her full potential. You think she's living her full, actualized. That's the most you could get out of that. Really. I just see it differently. I just see it totally differently. I see it totally differently. Mr. Yeah, but Bros Universal Imp? Oh, Immo. I call everybody bro, even my son and wife. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's generational. I'm 32. And I don't know. I don't say cuz either. Yeah, but says that's TV. She's better when not overly produced. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. I did make a video about her potentially being Jeffrey Dahmer, though, because she was on a podcast and someone asked her, what's the grossest thing in your fridge? And she said an old smoothie. And I thought that was a good answer because, forget what the podcast was called, but other people on that same podcast wouldn't answer the question. And Savannah Hamilton was like, there's like a 6-day-old gross smoothie in my fridge. Great answer. And then the next video it's like a question he asked everybody. I can't remember what it's called. Shouts to that guy, though. I don't even know why I went down this. I go down weird rabbit holes with Raptors content. And then some other person was like, nothing in my fridge is weird. Next question. So shouts to her for doing that. We passed the 1 hour mark. Yay. Oh my God. I feel like we passed it more than, some people only come for the wins, but we did pass, an hour and like 40 minutes last time, I think. I was going to talk about plantar fasciitis, but This yeah but guy's really got me fucking in a bad mood now. Feel like just missed the point entirely, and now my brain is thinking that everybody missed the point I was trying to make, and they now think that I'm a terrible person and that I should probably stop making basketball content. So thanks for that, yeah, but thanks for that. That's all my notes. Do you guys want to talk about plantar fasciitis? Gary has it. So I kind of can understand what he's going through in some ways. And I noticed on the Toronto Raptors subreddit in the plantar fasciitis discussion that a lot of people had plantar fasciitis. So anybody in the chat, if someone you know or love has, see, I stopped reading the chat and I get into a better mood immediately. Maybe I should take note on that. Do you or anybody know? So now this yeah but's guy going to be like, yeah but's going to come in and be like, actually, plantar fasciitis is the third temporal musculature down the foot and is not technically what Gareth Trent Jr. has. I'm going to get lectured if I go back and look at what's in the chat. But yeah, like you saw Gary limping around on it, and it's just like, it's the weirdest thing because you can play basketball like full on going nuts and you feel nothing. And then all of a sudden it's like you do a quick cut or you jump. Jumping's like a big one. If jumping off one foot, jumping off one leg. And then even sometimes on the landing, like you just get this like, just, it's hard to describe, but sharp, like knife like pain. And then you wake up in the morning, and I use a night sock, which has really helped. Been icing a lot lately, but I've had it for like, I've had it with conjunction with Achilles tendonitis as well. So it's been like a 2-year stretch of rehabbing that. But yeah, does anybody have any plantar? You're hating on glossy TV production. She's covered the 905 as a coach. I don't really watch. I guess I should watch more 905. Is that a requirement for this? Sorry, I'm not deep in my 905 bag. I couldn't name 8 of the. I joke about going to their open tryouts all the time, but I have not been Mr. Yeah, but that's a good username. Yeah, but that's very like. This is honestly how I behave in a stream as well. So I totally get it. I actually kind of like it. Vegan grasses, we got your point. TZW stream. Is that to deal with your foot, says G-Man. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like normally when you have plantar fasciitis, like I think Embiid had it last year. Porzingis had it in the summer. People like play through it. There's definitely different degrees of it, just with anything else. But yeah, it's a bitch. And it's like, I have wider feet and flat feet, so that's a really bad combination. Not to get to LeBron James of feet topic, but yeah, I think certain people are more predisposed to it. So it's not really like an age thing, like Gary's like 20, 24, in the NBA. So like an NBA level athlete can still get it. And it's more about, it's like the plantar fascia is just this like really flimsy kind of thin, almost like piece of paper at the bottom of your foot. And it's not supposed to work really hard. It's not supposed to take a bunch of load. It's not supposed to be, super involved in like jumping and landing and running. It's just more of a stabilizer. So if you have weakness anywhere in the chain, like above that, say, because that's literally the bottom of the bottom. Like that's your bottom of your foot. That's the absolute bottom of the chain if you're jumping, if you're running, landing. So if you have things that are weak, like, calves is a big one, hamstring, hips are a really big one. Then, the weight that those should be absorbing, glutes is a big one. Like it seems kind of weird that hips and ankles would be so aligned, but if you just stand still and like move side to side with your hips, keeping your feet planted, like your ankles are very involved in that movement. So if you think about basketball, how much your hips are moving, that puts a lot of like pressure on your ankles if your hips are weak. And then if your what's it called? Anterior tib is weak, which is on the outside of your leg, like above your ankle. If that's weak, then that's also going to, and that's a really common one for basketball because, a really good way to illustrate this is like if you do a back squat. So this is why front squat's one of the best rehabs for this. If you do a back squat, you're not really in the position. You're more in a defensive position. You're not so much in a position where you're like shooting or dribbling, which is you're going to be more forward. Your knees are going to be more above your toes. So on a front squat, that's going to be more beneficial for hitting that. And that's a really common weak muscle for a lot of people because it's just like there's nothing really in the gym where there's just not that many like workouts or I guess knowledge even of kind of working that muscle. Everybody's like glutes and hamstrings and calves, but that one is like a very neglected. It's basically off to the side of your shin, but super important muscle. And if you have Achilles tendonitis or plantar fasciitis, like that muscle is probably really tight. So getting a golf ball, lacrosse ball. And then also what's really important with plantar fasciitis is like feet workouts. So it's just really simple, like sitting on the edge of a bed, pushing your foot into like a carpet or a towel as hard as you can. And like your calves are really going to feel it. And doing it in different positions where you would play basketball. So sometimes like, for example, if you're jab stepping, your leg is way in front of your body. So doing like workouts, but stretches and I guess you call them workouts, putting force into the ground in those positions are going to build those muscles around the plantar fascia to make them stronger when they're in vulnerable positions, like when you are, going off of one foot or jab stepping and whatever. So but it is also a huge barrier. Like, running can make it inflamed very easily. Jumping makes it inflamed. So if you're someone like Gary, like I basically had to like relearn how to shoot without jumping. Like I basically shoot like Tyrese Halliburton now. It's working for me, but like I've had to basically over the last 2 years like remodel my entire shot because I've had to kind of rehab through this shit. So just the plantar fascia ranch. Plantar fascia rant. I'd watch 905 for Noel. Yeah, how's he doing? How's he doing down there? I'm working on tracks for every Raptor, and the Marquise Noel one is like, it's actually a beat I made in Cuba or like worked on a lot in Cuba. And some of them are making like new beats for them. And then other ones are like older ones that I'm retrofitting. And that one is just kind of got this like old, he mentions New Orleans, which is like almost wish it was New York, but like it's got a Marvin Gaye sample. It's got this like it's got a sample from like a Turkish record. It's got some Italian old barbershop quartet stuff and James Brown break. And a bass line from the Turkish sample with bongo drum, or not bongo drums. What are those Turkish drums called? Bongo-ish sounding. And it's got this like 90s kind of hip hop feel to it. And I'm like, that's the perfect Marquise Noel song. I know he, on Twitter, he's a bit of a 90s hip hop guy. So I thought that could be a good ode to him. And then that will be along with like Thad, Garrett Temple. Those will all kind of be similar sounds. The Thad one is like a billiards track that I made with like pool balls as like the samples, like pool balls hitting each other, which is a great sound if you're looking for cool samples. Layer that on top of shit or just kind of have it at the end of a 4-bar sequence just to kind of create a bit of chaos. So that'll be kind of the older school kind of hip hop stuff. I think Malachi could even fit into that a little bit. I think he's kind of like an old soul in that way. And then lots of like jungle kind of reggae stuff. Some dub stuff, some footwork, some juke, really kind of all over the place. That's really the only thing I'm kind of worried about is it's so all over the place, kind of like Gary's like a chill jazzy track, kind of like you would smoke weed to. And then Precious is just like, crazy jungle, like almond break, like just kind of chaos. And so I'm trying to figure out like how to fit all the tracks together and like the order to put them in. And there's going to kind of be like different sections Um, it's going to be like a bunch of Jeff Dowtin and David Johnson tracks, because most of the stuff I make is kind of like sad or moody. So that works for them really well, obviously. I don't know how I started talking about that, but G-Man is what my hockey coach called me. It's a good name. It's one of the biggest hip-hop promoters in Vancouver. That's his nickname, G-Man. He runs Fortune. They brought so many people. I don't know if they got bought out all the way, but anyways. G-Man's a cool name. I think that's going to do it, you know? The Tony Wonder Award's going to go to Scottie, and the Anvil Award's going to go to Thad Young again, because it kind of does quite a bit. So yeah, the Toronto Raptors, they break what seems to be a weird Chicago Bulls curse. Almost getting similar to like the Dwayne Casey old with the Pistons. For some reason, the people that leave, and maybe this will be a thing with Nick and this, like maybe the Sixers will just absolutely tank. I don't know what podcast. I was listening to Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and they're talking about and I know you guys like fake trades, an Embiid Chet Holmgren trade. So yeah, that's what they were throwing around. So, you know, maybe if the Sixers just suck, you know, this season and blow it up, and you know, Nick continues to get W's against the Raptors for the next 5 years, that could be a thing. But it definitely, like, I guess tonight kind of broke it, but it felt like with DeMar, with the Bulls, there's just like some weird, unexplainable, indescribable, inexplicable curse, whether it's like free throws or just crazy mismanagement of the game and weird calls down the stretch and overtime and all that. And then tonight, again, like halfway through the fourth, the Bulls go on a 7-0 run. They went on a few 7-0 runs in this game. And it felt like the Raptors were going to just kind of, it just did not look good. And then, yeah, Scottie's energy and just being everywhere and doing everything was what got them picked up again. He got OG some open looks. He got Jakob involved, got Pascal involved. Like, on both ends of the floor, he was just a unit, just an absolute tank. And Preston Jacobs says, W stream, thank you. TZ W stream, thank you. We did hit hour 17. These do kind of fly by, I'm not going to lie. The first couple I made were like half an hour. And I was just kind of, after they were over, it felt like they were hours long. But now, like, you know, starting to somewhat enjoy this, you know. The lights are pretty bright here in Times Square, though. So I think I'm going to get the Chicago poster behind me. Maybe I'll go see a show. I actually did see Chicago in New York. I went to New York on a school trip in grade 8 on a band trip. And they gave us way too much freedom in retrospect. Like, I was 13 and they were like, you know, partner up, like everybody, you know, stay with a buddy and go only like wander. We were literally like right here in Times Square. Only go, it was like a 5-block radius or something. And me and this like other 13-year-old kid were just like, okay, fuck it. Basically did like a Home Alone 2. And I don't know, I think we went all the way to like, it was at least, I think 20 blocks, maybe more. Just kind of crazy that we were able to do that. Post 9/11, by the way. This was 2005, I think. We were staying in New Jersey, and every day we would go into Manhattan to do shows, and I bought the System of a Down album, Toxicity, at the Virgin Record store in Times Square here. And I would just listen to that like on repeat, looking through the window through like Elizabeth, New Jersey, going over the bridges into New York. But yeah, New York's where's it going with that? I don't know. But saw Trump too, which was kind of wild. Like 2005, Trump was just like a TV host. Like he wasn't. I actually watched The Apprentice back then. I kind of blame my mom for that, but it was like 2005. And we were in Trump Tower, and was me and like one other person. We like went on a detour. Like we just ran up an escalator and went to look at something and then came back down the escalator and everybody had left. But like right as we're coming down the escalator, Trump was coming out of the elevator in the lobby. There's like the gold waterfall was like to my left, and then Trump was coming out of an elevator on the right as I'm coming down the escalator. And I just remember being like, holy shit, like he's a unit. Like he's massive. I don't know if people realize how massive he is. And then there was a basketball, like an NBA store slash like, it felt like a museum, but I think it was just a store on Fifth Avenue where they'd have like life-size Lego people of like Kevin Garnett and stuff. I don't know if that's still around. Somebody let me know if that's still around. Why am I talking about New York? Oh yeah, because I'm in New York. I'm gonna go see. Yeah, so we saw Chicago. Did we play at Radio? No, we didn't play at. We went to Radio City. We didn't play. That would be crazy. We played at Radio City. We just played like pretty shitty gigs. We played at like a gospel mission in like Harlem. I shouldn't say shitty gigs. We weren't playing like, we were a high school band. So like we Harlem was cool though. That was cool. Like saw like an entire church service in Harlem. Not something I would normally do, but you know, when in Rome. Checked out Radio City. You know. Went to a Yankee game.